I am Ian Rainey. I'm Managing Director of MSL Search and Selection. We specialise in the upper end of the executive recruitment market, probably with salaries between 50,000 and 100,000. Yeah, that's been a most interesting feature in the news in the last few weeks, that some 500,000 people in government jobs in Cuba have been laid off by the president, Raúl Castro, who's the younger brother of the more infamous Fidel Castro. In doing this, he has referred to excessive wage packets being paid and generating bad working habits, not unlike the sort of thing we've been reading about in the press here in Northern Ireland. Fidel Castro has come out with the most interesting statement in the Atlantic magazine in the States, saying that the communist economic model is not even working for us. And thus we have seen them laying off 500,000 government workers. I would not be prescribing that as something that we should be doing in Northern Ireland at the moment, even though we're reading so much about the public sector. I think we're so dependent on the public sector in Northern Ireland. It makes up something like 60-62% of the gross national product, and about 30,000 workers in Northern Ireland. We are still in a recession in Northern Ireland, and to lay off 10% of the public sector would have a major impact in the spending powers that people would have in the province. So I think we should adopt what the CBI is talking about and what the IOD have talked about, and known as the Scottish model, which is suggesting that there'll be no more recruitment in the public sector for the next 4 years, that salaries be parked where they are at the present, and that pension funds no longer be funded for the next 4 years. Taking that sort of holiday means no one loses their job, and we would continue to have an adequate spending power in the province, and I think that's very important for us. Yes, I've just come back from the States, and it was interesting over there that everything in the press seemed to be anti-China, and this has arisen because of the fact that there have been some 57,000 factories closed in America in the last 5 years, which traditionally were making goods which are now imported from China. This has meant that some 5.5 million people have been laid off in those industries. So we saw on the 29th of September a bill going through the House of Representatives introducing the fact that they would be prepared to put trade restrictions on Chinese goods coming into the country. They're doing this because they're saying that the Chinese have not revalued their currency over the last 10 years since they joined the World Trade Organization. The Chinese currency, the renminbi, is a fixed currency, unlike the dollar or the yen or sterling or the euro, which are floating currencies and are bought and sold every day in the marketplace. The Chinese renminbi is a fixed currency, and it's fixed rate, and it has been fixed for the last 10 years with all of the other world's great currencies. Net effect being now is that China its goods are so much cheaper than other countries' goods. And now with the Americans talking about a war on currency and forcing the Chinese to revalue, we're having a very difficult scenario, because we're aware that in the World Depression in the 1930s, similar currency wars really impacted adversely on the economic marketplace, and we certainly don't want that to happen again. Well, there's an old saying that if you're someone who invests in the stock exchange, you should sell in May and go away, and stay away and come back on St. Leger Day. And probably in 2010 that's been a very, very apt saying, because the market seemed to top out about the 27th of April, and people did go away and continue to sell stocks, and stocks got right down to 4,800 in the FTSE by the end of June. August saw stocks in America drop by another 5%, but all of a sudden in September the market took off. Why? Well, one good reason is that the fund managers and the institutional investors and the stockbrokers traditionally in England take their holidays in August. This time they came back at the end of August before St. Leger Day to find that the American Stock Exchange was racing ahead based on very good US housing figures. US housing starts were up something like 9.5% in August, which followed a good month in July. So the US market was moving ahead fast. So it was easy for the market to start moving and catch up. Also, I think economic indicators were suggesting that the world was going to be able to manage out of a double dip recession. So again, there was confidence there. I think there are other reasons. And if you look at what you can get if you put your money in the bank, you're probably only getting 1%. Whereas you can get some very good returns in the stock exchange with excellent shares paying you 4.5%, 5%, and even 6% dividends, as well as seeing growth in your capital value. So I think there's been that lack of alternatives has enabled more and more people to go into the stock exchange as well. I think the gold price, is fair to say, is being pushed up by continued uncertainty in the world economies. We are not out of the way of talking about double-dip recession. America's talking about injecting more money into the economy, thus making its currency weaker. Britain is talking about doing the same. And the infamous pigs being Portugal, Italy, Greece, and Spain are equally uncertain about their economies. So there is uncertainty out there about the economies of some of the major countries in the world. And in that sort of scenario, gold becomes a safe haven for people to invest in. Also, I think what's impacting on it is that central banks, who traditionally were major sellers of gold in the olden days, are today buying gold, so suggesting that they themselves are concerned about the world economies. Also, the hedge funds, which traditionally, again, have been in stocks and shares and other financial instruments, have started investing in gold. Also, now we have this scare going on in the currency markets with China, and not only China, but India, Brazil, South Korea, all trying to push China into a situation to revalue. We're getting a lot of uncertainty in the political environment. So the price of gold does go up in a scenario like that, and has continued to go up this year from somewhere around about $1,100 an ounce to something like $1,560 in the last few days.